Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Valley Regional School District School Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, August 18th, 2022. The time is 7:08. This meeting is being held in the PVRSD library and via Google Meet in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. A link to view the school committee meeting will be on the website at www.pvrsdk12.org, or you can view it at www.facebook.com/BNC Television. The public is welcome to attend in person or to watch via the links above. But in the event of an issue with the links, the public meeting in person shall continue to proceed. If you'd like to speak virtually via Google Meet during citizens' comments, please email citizenscomments@pvrsdk12.org. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll do a roll call attendance.
Yes. Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Alan Genovese, Warwick, present.
David Young, Warwick, present.
Melissa Gary, present.
Karen O'Neill, present.
All right, and Raina Dastu, present. Do we have any citizens' comments? I don't see anyone in the room. We don't have any links. All right. And then do we have minutes to review?
So I sent out minutes, but I didn't see them. I saw Joanne sent a note that there was going to be an additional packet. So I can predict the minutes if that's helpful. I know it's not fun to read them on the fly, and I don't know if everybody will be able to see them. That's the problem.
No, we can defer those to the next meeting, I believe.
All right. So hopefully she has them.
Yeah, I think I did see.
I copied Patricia and Raina.
Yeah, I saw the email, but I think it didn't go out to the rest of the committee.
What's the date of those minutes? It's the meeting we missed.
I think it was the most recent one, July.
July 14th.
Thank you.
And also May 26th. I had a problem with May 26th, and I lost my notebook, unfortunately, but I found it.
May 26th.
So,
Thank you.
I have to do those.
Great. Okay. All right. So on to reports. The chair report. I know I was planning to follow up with MASC about doing a school committee self-assessment, and then before I went off to vacation, and then I got COVID, and neither one of those things happened. So it also gave me the opportunity to reflect, knowing that we have elections coming up in November, and we're anticipating some new members. So I think maybe a self-assessment at this time, it probably doesn't make the most sense, and we'll be doing that at a later time, I think. So I also wanted to point out there are copies of the Commission on Fiscal Health of Rural School Districts report, so we can feel free to take a copy and we can look at it. We'll look it over and possibly discuss that in the future.
Just real quick, do you know if they're planning on having meetings with us, the authors of the report?
I have not seen them send something out to districts to request that they come to districts. I can reach out and see if they're planning some maybe regional meetings. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Would that help?
Yep, thank you.
And then also we've received the MASC booklet on with the selected Massachusetts general laws relating to education. So feel free to take a copy home tonight. For those of you who are remote, Joanne will have copies, and we can maybe have them available the next time for both of you. So. Superintendent's report.
Okay, lots of doings over the summer and in the next couple of weeks. Tonight, we had sports night here at Pioneer, and the cafeteria was full. How wonderful to see our students back with their families. Athletics Director Baird, Interim Principal Carter, just wonderful to see our kids back, and go Panthers. All right. Okay, we had our first admin retreat in at least 7 years this week. Thank you to our admin team, and thank you to our friends and neighbors and colleagues across the way at Northfield Mount Herman. They graciously hosted us for 2 full days. They provided us with delicious, nutritious breakfast and lunch. They refreshed the coffee in the afternoon and brought out snacks. Truly, thank you, Associate Head of School Charlie Tierney, for hosting us. And I am grateful to my team. They really dug in, and while we did do some business technical work, much of our time was spent on learning with each other, which I have been just aching to get to, and we are there. We are turning the corner. We are now able to do learning as an admin team. So that was wonderful. Next week, again, new, we haven't done this in a long time in the district, new educator orientation for all new faculty next week. They'll spend the first half of the day with me here in the library, and then they will head off to their buildings. And school committee, you are invited to our opening day program. On Monday, August 29th, we'll send out invites, 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning. For the first time in a few years, almost every employee will be together in one room. How beautiful. We will enjoy each other's company over breakfast and then move into the auditorium where Senator Jo Comerford will address the group. We're delighted that the senator has made time in her busy schedule for us. We will recognize different types of staff. So we hope that as many members of school committee as able are will join us on that morning. And thanks, as you know, thanks to the recently signed MOA with the PVASP, for the first time we'll have our instructional assistants for a full day of PD after that program. So the admin team is hard at work determining what would be the best use of that time. So many things. And I want to share my screen for a minute because I'd like to update the committee and our folks at home on some important changes that have taken place in this building. This is a map, and we need to update our maps so they're a little bit more crisp and clear, but this can suffice for tonight. This is a map of this building. If you see my cursor over here in the upper left, that's where the parking lot is, and here's the main entrance to the high school wing. F. Sumner Turner Drive is up here, and the entrance to the middle school is over here. So what has taken place this summer? Without any construction, without putting up any temporary walls or taking down any walls, we have reconfigured how we use our space for our administrative team, and we have improved the quality of the spaces that a number of students and teachers are working in. So previously, so this is the entrance, here's the auditorium, here's the library. If you come into the high school here and turn right and go down, I'm down here. Here's the superintendent's office. Last year, TMS, our money people, were all the way over here, go up a set of stairs, and they were here. They were as far as the crow flies in the building as is possible, and that's not good. That's not good for efficiency. It's not good for collaboration. It's not good for the building of community. So what we did was we have moved our administrative team almost entirely down to this wing of the building and here. There was an unused classroom space down here that is now used. We've converted one of these rooms into what will be a multi-purpose conference meeting room. We've got our early childhood and curriculum people. That includes the wonderful Deb Wood, our coordinated family and community engagement coordinator, who works with toddlers and preschoolers in our 4 towns. Deb Wood has graciously stored carton upon carton upon carton of work materials at her home. because she's not had an appropriate space in the building. She now has appropriate space. Deb has been able to empty out her home, and they are here. This is the multi-purpose room. Maren and Deb, when they are working with families with toddlers who will now be coming into this building, we will see strollers being pushed through the building in the winter. Deb has a dedicated space she can use to work with families. And Maren has a dedicated space when she needs to do assessment with the young ones. They are here. Those rooms are next to each other. Faculty may sign up to use this room. This will be a room available to all. Subcommittees of the school committee may meet down here. This room right here, 101, it's quite a large space with windows on two sides, a door to the outside. Years ago, that was the language lab. It had been unused for some years. Last year, the seniors dismantled, with the help of the custodians, dismantled the learning cubicles and used it as the senior lounge. We've converted it to our business office, which means Suzanne Jason has available to her this meeting space when she needs to conduct private meetings with faculty to talk about benefits, health insurance. She can move to a private place, which she did not have available to her before. Christy Fontaine is now near us. Jordan is in this little room right here. Dana Unitas previously was in that space. Dana now has a lovely, I would call it maybe a half classroom space over here. So Dana and the students she works with have better space in which to do their work. This was the ELL classroom previously. It now has Kate Baylog and special education files. ELL is also now over here, right in the mix with kids, across from the Special Education Center, across from a faculty lounge. So we're trying to improve the quality of spaces that our kids are in. And I think this is very exciting. There were 2 world language rooms down here. Here's what's happened. Those 2 world language rooms have moved up to the 2nd floor back here in what was a business office and a special education kind of file office. Alongside this, this might be one of the nicest rooms for me in the building. It's on the 2nd floor. It overlooks the fields here. It is a science classroom that has many, many base cabinets and wall cabinets. It has an enormous storage area here. It has 4 sinks. Adrienne Galani, who teaches art and health, and previously was working in a room that had no windows and no water. She's an art teacher. She had no water in her room. She is now up in this beautiful room with 4 sinks and tons of storage space. And the coup de grace for me is that these rooms, 2 world language rooms and an art/health room, are the 3 rooms that serve students in both middle school and high school. So this is a little crossroads up here that's concentrated, where middle schoolers and high schoolers will see each other, pass each other, say hello to each other, perhaps make some connections. We've moved our technology offices. Previously were here and here. They have graciously consolidated their operation into this big room, 408. 407 is now becoming a swing space for projects for these 3 classrooms. So when world language has some expansive hands-on something or other that involves constructions and they need to work and leave their constructions up, they can simply move into this space, keep things up, and not bothering anybody. So I thank our custodians. Gosh, did they work hard. We did hire movers for 2 days. There were many, many file cabinets and pieces of furniture that needed to be moved, but overall, this was a really low-cost rethinking of how we use space in the building that, again, improves the quality of space for students and educators, will increase the efficiency of our administrative team, improves access for our early childhood people. Oh, right. Deb Wood, when she walked down this hallway and saw the lovely room, these are very nice rooms. There's a door to the outside, and Deb Wood said, "May I take the kids out there?" So we have things to look forward to in this building, right? As we think about how to increase utilization of the building, we're now going to have the young set and the older set in one space. So I offer my sincere gratitude to the Gretchen who manage the custodial staff, the custodians, and the flexibility of our teachers and admin, because it can be hard to move. So that was a long explanation, but I want the school committee to understand this was a big deal for us, and I appreciate all the work people put into it. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Sounds wonderful. Director of Finance report.
All right, so I'm going to start off with answering some questions from the July 14th meeting that I had emailed to the school committee members, but hadn't provided an answer to the public, so I wanted to also fill in the blanks there from the July 14th meeting. There was a question about a $2,702 budget transfer from school lunch subsidy to the school committee expense, and why that transfer is necessary. And so the additional expenses in the school committee area were $831.25 for Warwick Consulting, $320 for recording of minutes for 4 additional school committee meetings, and additional audit expenses. So that explains that transfer from the school lunch subsidy to the school committee expense line. An additional area of question was about the $4,990.44 in miscellaneous expense in the June 2022 lunch report, because that was a unusually large miscellaneous expense. So that was $2,500 for a propane delivery. And this is a larger propane delivery, helping to explain the larger expense that is an advanced delivery for the entirety of the next school year. And there was a $1,900 expense for a reduction in previously paid federal aid. The rest of the miscellaneous expenses were just our normal monthly miscellaneous expenses that occur in the school lunch fund. So I just wanted to provide those publicly, as well as the emails that I provided in July to the school committee.
Question?
Yeah.
I apologize for missing that meeting. Just wondering the rationale behind taking those from the school lunch as opposed to other areas that might be more in line with the appropriateness of the spending. I don't have any problem with where they were sent, just the rationale.
Sure. I think the rationale was, at the time that the transfer was made, that we were certain that the school lunch wasn't going to run a deficit, so that money would definitely be available to transfer to school committee. So I think that was the main extent of the rationale.
David?
We celebrate the fact that we could transfer from school lunch, because we had a $273,000 school lunch deficit, running it as its own silo, and eventually we found out it affected our general fund and our whole operation. So I think that the period of COVID has resulted in quite a lot of revenue, and so it's, again, possible to run out of the, maybe almost exclusively out of the revolving fund. But in recognition of the fact that we can't do this again, we can't have a deficit, we appropriate in the general fund, but to the extent it's prudent, would operate away from it. So that money would be available to transfer.
Great. Thank you both. This time I come prepared and knowing my colors. Last time I had all white paper, so now I'm ready. Grizzled veteran here at my second meeting. So the next area I'd like to talk about is the school committee expenditure report for 2021-22, which is on green paper, the color of money apparently. So And mainly, I just want to talk about, I guess, as I alluded to in the July meeting, the year-end transactions to, for the most part, close out FY22. So we did, in the interim period between the last meeting and now, a lot of year-end cleanup, and have reached a tentative budget excess of which is visible on page 8. If you turn all the way to the back, I'm jumping right to the back. An FY22 excess, a tentative excess that will be solidified when we complete the excess and deficiency reporting. But a tentative excess of $255,565.85, or 1.72% of the budget. So overall, after the cleanup, we had a pretty accurate budget within 1.72% of what was budgeted, our actual expenditures, and less than the budget. So I think that tells a positive story of our budgeting and of a cleanup that was successful to have the appropriate items on the general fund. Speaking of which, we did a decent amount of reclassifying, specifically from school choice to our insurance line item for active employees. So on page 1 of this report, the account code 00015100.00.6, the health and life insurance for active employees, has a budget balance of negative $568,052.56. And that's because we reclassified expenses from the school choice fund to the general fund, in consultation with our financial overseer and in deep consultation with our budget and finance subcommittee. Thank you for the input there. And obviously, Michelle, if you want to jump in at any point to talk about that, is the chair of the committee. But that was extremely helpful to have that conversation about reclassification and about how we're moving forward. So we wanted to have those expenses on the general fund where they belong, those recurring expenses. So we reclassified things from school choice onto the general fund, which creates a negative balance of over $568,000, and which necessitates many of the budget transfers that I prepared for this evening. So on the purple sheet, I have prepared all the budget transfers that will be necessary to transfer funds from other accounts that have remaining balances into the health and life insurance for active employees. So, and those will all need to be voted on, all those transfers. And there are a couple, there are 4 transfers at the bottom that are related to transferring money into athletics, because we also transferred money from the athletics revolving fund onto the general fund to provide greater opportunity to use athletics revolving fund during the FY23 year. So those final 4 are related to athletics and transportation expenses. So I guess I will read each of the transfers. There's a lot of them, so
I would move these transfers as
I'd second that.
Excuse me?
Oh, Karen?
Yeah, I was wondering if those could be displayed. I don't
I
think
think
they
you're
were sent.
muted.
No, I'm not. I'm not muted.
She's not muted. I can hear her. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear her.
Oh.
I'd like to see those displayed because
Yeah.
they weren't provided ahead of time.
Oh, they weren't provided ahead of time.
Anybody has questions?
Karen just wants to see the numbers.
Well, we have a motion, we have a second. Yeah,
I'm aware of that, but we have no idea what we're voting on because we didn't see it.
Can she be sent a document?
I can certainly bring up the document.
so while she's doing that, if I may ask a question?
Sure.
I'm making the assumption that by doing this and cleaning these things up, it's going to put things where they belong and making the end-of-year reporting to DESI much clearer when you're doing that report.
I would agree, yes.
Okay.
Oh, this, they might not have, I don't see them on the, which means, I'm not sure that how you have it electronically. Let me see.
Could you tell us in this lull, what will be the effect of not making these transfers and having a $500,000 deficit on that line? Will that result in some sort of accounting penalty by DESI or Department of Revenue? Or is this just procedural moves that make accountants happy and that I could care less about?
Yeah, I think definitely would make accountants happy, which is a difficult thing to do. However, I think also, for our financial overseer, I think it's the appropriate thing to do rather than have extremely large negative budget balances at the end of the year. I think that they would want to see that we were accounting for those appropriately.
My second was germane to the point that when you were reviewing this, you vetted it through a number of people, and particularly our finance overseer and so forth. So, I mean, I certainly have faith in that process and that you did due diligence. So I support taking some action on it this evening. And it's always clearer and cleaner the earlier you do that. So as you're moving forward, you can then put your eyes on other things to see if there's other areas you need to clean up.
I would just like to say the Budget Subcommittee did meet last week, and we did go over all of these.
Melissa, do you still have anything to add? Karen, did you have more comments?
I'm just uncomfortable not seeing it.
Yeah, I think Patricia's working on it.
Okay.
So if this deficit were to persist in one of my town's accounts, it would have an impact on our version of excess and deficiency. But I think to really understand the purpose behind this is that we're making, we're aligning expenses with what is actually, associates. But we've had a year on and year forever policy of paying for a portion of health insurance expenses, in particular retiree health insurance, off the books, so to speak, not within the general fund, ever. And it was a grievance of Warwick that we got no credit for when we talked about closing the school. We got no credit for the $160,000 a year that it brought in school choice because it didn't offset the budget at all. So this exercise effectively moves money into our fund, into a fund account, into a non-general fund account, account that's not part of excess and deficiency calculation, and expenditures out of it are not part of the state's calculation of whether or not we're spending money on education correctly and sufficiently too. So other funds, not general fund, is not the place to fund core education stuff. So in voting for this, we're cleaning up the record. It'll make it easier to budget next year. We'll be moving all those expenses into a column where they'll, so I saw a draft of a report to the state for last year that demonstrates that, we're at least doing minimum spending, and it said that we didn't. But, it wasn't done. It was, this would be one more piece of evidence. So, for instance, the money that the towns spend on their buildings, respective buildings, that's not an education expense, not counted by the state as an education expense. This will be counted as an education expense this way.
And we'll be able to compare apples to apples when we get to the end of the year.
Andy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, and I think that David's comments actually did it for me, that it's a significant transfer, but it's to put all of our actual expenses into the general fund so that we're actually seeing what the cost of the budget is reflected accurately, and then the school choice money is coming in as a revenue source rather than paying things directly out of the school fund choice. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree with David. That's a great improvement.
Yeah, so the budget would actually reflect more what we're spending and not, and where we're spending it. Melissa, do you have a question, your hand raised?
Thanks. I was just going to suggest that, reiterate too, that the budget subcommittee did go over this. And I think that there's some really good points that have been made. And I would just suggest that we call the motion to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm just waiting for Patricia to share.
Okay, it's
Right.
up there.
So we ready to take a vote?
Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Alan Genovese Warwick, yes.
Michelle Jeruso Leiden, yes.
David Young, yes.
Melissa Gary, yes.
Karen O'Neill, yes.
And Raina Dastu, yes. That motion passes unanimously. Great.
And thank you for all the work that went behind this, because this one document took a lot of time.
Thank you, Alan.
And Jordan, do you have more anything more to report?
Yeah, I've got a few more, unfortunately.
Okay.
One quick one, it was part of the packet, so I want to mention it. Joanne calls this salmon. I was going to say orange, but salmon colored paper for the revenue report for 2021, 2022. So again, pretty much closing the books, certainly on the revenue end. We collected all of our revenue and an additional $23,000 approximately, which is 0.16% more than the budgeted revenue. So again, very close to our budget.
Okay.
Moving on to the 2022-23 expenditure report. I'll try to move quickly, but what I'd like to discuss on this expenditure report is just the budget balance column for the items that are negative. I just want to explain each of those items and ensure that the school committee and public understand that we understand the rationale for why those items are negative, and explain a little more similar to the last topic about trying to keep all of our expenses on the general fund until later in the year, when we may strategically use different funds to cover certain expenses, but initially have everything on the general fund so we can budget appropriately and see those expenses appropriately. So that'll be part of the discussion. But the first item that has a very large negative balance is superintendent's salary. That was budgeted for, of course, but it was under a 1200 function code, which is not superintendent. So that would potentially cause end-of-year reporting problems. So we wanted to make sure that we used the accurate function, which is the 1210 account code. So that is certainly something that was budgeted for, but the account code is not the appropriate account code, so we wanted to make sure it was the correct account code, so our end-of-year reporting would be accurate. That's the same thing with the superintendent dues and subscriptions. There was only a 1200 account code for that, not a 1210, so we also wanted to make sure that was put in the appropriate functional area. Moving down to the next negative item, which is central office telephone expenses. During the budget process, there wasn't knowledge that we were going to move away from a reimbursement for cell phone expenses to a providing cell phone expenses and paying the monthly expense from the general fund, and importantly, at a lower monthly expense. So it's saving us money, but it wasn't budgeted in that telephone line item. So we will eventually do budget transfers and take care of these items, but we wanted to first bring them to everyone's attention and make sure everyone knew that we understand why they're negative. The next item, oh, of course, David.
Well, I'm just not much of an accounting type. I really can understand clearly the superintendent's not being paid twice. We don't need any headlines to that effect. But to my mind, well, I mean, just the salmon sheet is, to my non-accountant mind, so illustrative of the revenue report. We got more revenue than we budgeted for, so we have a negative number. You know, but that's accounting, and I'll never understand it. So we have the wrong budget code here, and we correct it with an entry for, and the wrong budget, and one of them is negative, and it seems like there needs to be one more entry, or we've got $158,000 less on the bottom line than we're gonna, because.
Right, good question.
Is it really? Maybe you just
No, it is.
want me to go away. Not sure.
I would never do that. I love having someone sitting next to me. It was going to be empty without you, David. So it's budgeted for, just in the wrong function. So the function's the 1,200. So as you can see, there is two places where superintendent's salary is listed. One with an amount in the general ledger budget column, the first column, and one with $0. So the budget exists. So eventually what will happen is there'll be a large budget transfer from that 1200 account code into the 1210.
That'll close the loop. Thanks.
So the bottom line isn't going to change.
Bottom line will
We're
not
just
change.
shifting accordingly.
Correct. And my thought process is so that in the future, when we do the budget transfers, everyone will have been received advance explanation for why the negatives exist, because making that an easier process. So everyone has already been informed of why these deficits exist. And the transfers will probably be made more of an October, November, when we have encumbered all the salaries, know all of our staffing, and then we'll have an idea of where we have deficiencies and where we have excesses within the budget. So all good questions, but continuing on.
One other, does that $25,000 that the overseer has to do for contracts, is there any amount of money that involves the overseer in this process?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, these are just where the expenses are going to.
Yep.
So continuing on, the health and life insurance, sorry, apologies, the workers' compensation line item has a negative $5,768 balance. And that, again, was just during the budgeting process. What happens with your workers' compensation is that your rate is adjusted based on actual claims. And so last year we had a downward adjustment from an original amount of very close to this amount of $54,500, but then there was an adjustment down And instead of using the original higher number, we use the adjusted down number for our budget. But there's no guarantee that this year we'll also have an adjustment down. So our initial charge is higher than it was last year after the adjustment. There's a potential that this amount could actually go down. But probably in the future in budgeting, we should use a higher number to ensure that we don't have a deficit this early in the year. And in addition to that, there were also certain employee groups that had an increased rate that explains about 20% of that over expense.
So that's contrary to my understanding. My understanding is we self-insure in workers' comp, and so that this is us actually reimbursing dollar for dollar. There's no, oh, the rate changed because of your experience last year and I'm chasing all over. And this was my experience in the past with the school committee and how we cost layoffs, and that we literally had to have the money next month if we laid somebody off to pay that bill. Something to look into. My understanding is, unless we made a change.
When do we typically get that information from the state? Isn't it in November or something like that, that if they're making an adjustment based on our claims, it may not be consistent with what our plan was?
Yeah, it is in the fall.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact date that the adjustment was made last year, but it is in the fall.
Okay.
Because I spoke with our insurance providers at length because I wanted to get an explanation for why our budget figure didn't match up with the actual cost of our insurance. Staying on the topic of insurance, the liability insurance also has a negative $7,661 balance. That, again, is a budgeting issue. We actually added a policy that we previously did not have for flood and earthquake insurance. To my knowledge, that wasn't something we had ever purchased previously, but we did purchase that this year, and I spoke with the agent because I was surprised that we decided on that policy, but they assured me that in the future we could cancel it because I think that might be prudent if we haven't needed it historically. So that's something to look at for the FY24 year. I wouldn't recommend continuing it from the conversation I had. In addition, and I think we can predict these if we work closely with our insurance agent. I think we will be able to improve the budgeting in the future because the second component of it was our property valuation increased. And there's about, for every $1 million, our policy increases $1,000 from my understanding with the conversation with the agent. And the agent assured me that they would be able to help us at the time of budget season to predict that if we reach out. So I plan on doing that and helping us budget more accurately in the future.
Check on if we're insuring for replacement value or current market value, because it's hard to build today for market value.
Good, so moving on to page 3. There's nothing, page 2, page 3. There's, custodial supplies of negative 4,200. And that's because in our approved budget, we've taken a lot of maintenance buildings and grounds and moved that to ESSER 3. But I think strategically that's something we may choose to do differently, and I would want that on the general fund initially, and then ultimately we'll make a strategic decision about where to fund that from. It's not in the budget, but there may be ability to make transfers to cover those expenses, but I think initially we should put these long-term recurring expenses on the general fund and not move them off. To Alan's very good points, I think it's more appropriate to have them on the general fund first. So there are several items where we've done that. The next item is the Bernardston Telephone, and that's similar. The cellular phone payment instead of a reimbursement is going to that line item, so that causes the negative there. And then moving to page 4, the Northfield principal salary line has a negative balance. There's 2 factors to that. We had our outgoing principal, Megan Damaris, kindly provide a lot of support and extra work this summer to help with her transition and transition the position to Mr. Trill, who's present. And we also adjusted the salary slightly to make it more in line with market rates. We had heard throughout the process and through research that the salary we were offering was below market, and we wanted to move towards a market rate salary there. So that explains part of that difference between the budget amount and what we have in actuals. There's a fuel line, custodial supplies again, similar, the same ESSER 3 explanation. On page 5, to quickly summarize in the interest of time, all 3 of those items on page 5 were also originally budgeted on ESSER 3, and now we're putting them on the general fund in order to budget more appropriately and be able to act more strategically. In same situation on page 6. Those are all items that were originally put on ESSER 3. On page 7, there is a negative $500 balance in technology travel. That just comes from adding additional travel to a new contract for FY23 as the technology employees often travel between the different buildings. And there is a negative balance in the technician salary, and that was from a raise provided to an employee, again, to more align the job responsibilities and work with a market rate salary. So data coordinator salary, that was also a larger amount than was originally budgeted, and there was a increase in working hours there as well. There's a elementary tech hardware line item, and that's for a student who needs additional hardware to support their education plan. And that's all for the negative balances. I hope that's informative. I'm welcome to feedback, but I would like to, if everyone agrees that's informative, to continue to report on those as they come, just so we wouldn't want the impression that we don't know why negative balances exist. I think it's important to explain those as they come.
You have a question, Alan?
Yeah, this is really helpful. Thank you. Trying to figure out how to process this question, because there's several ways in accounting how we did this. So let's just pretend for a minute. Let's go to custodial supplies. Suppose, you don't have to look at it, just theoretically. So if we needed to purchase a number of things because of sanitizing and cleaning and so forth, because of COVID in an area that we weren't planning for, we then used like COVID money to cover that expense. So did we use COVID money and budget money that exceeded what we budgeted, and we have this number here? Or did we, I don't want to say it, do it off the books, but have a different accounting for how we appropriate those monies? And so in addition to those monies, we also ran a deficit in these accounts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're getting at. So I think, and the reason I want to move it back onto the general fund is I think what we've done, and I wasn't present for the budget process, but from analyzing it, what I think we've done is we have taken our normal recurring expenses and put those on ESSER 3. Which, as you say, if something happens as a surprise, maybe you think it's a one-time item, that may be an appropriate way to approach that expense. But I think in the first instance, you'd want to put your recurring expenses there. And then when you get to November, you have a really good idea of, okay, this is what it's going to cost in FY23, which really greatly informs your FY24 budgeting. Whereas it could be difficult to keep track of things if they're on grants, if people aren't seeing that. I think it doesn't make the job easier, and I think that ESSER 3 is one potential way to budget for that, but there are other revenue sources or funds that we could use. So I think that I want our full strategic options at our disposal rather than immediately putting them in one place, similar to what we saw at the end of FY22 with some of those school choice
I don't
funds.
remember, maybe we got it and I'm just having when I had COVID, I still have COVID brain. I don't remember seeing like, these are all the expenses that we charge to COVID to help, our students and our faculty. So do we get a document like that? So that would be helpful, because I don't really have a broad understanding. Like if there was a spreadsheet that showed, here's what the revenue was, here's what our expense was and what it was for, I think that would clean that picture up so we'd have an idea of how useful that assistance was in not supplanting the budget, but helping us to stay on track within the budget. So that would be helpful, a helpful document. I know that David produced a document similar to that in terms of the funding of ARPA money and so forth, so that you can get the big picture. That would be really good from a regional school district perspective.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely look into producing something like that. And I think a lot of those expenses, if we look at it forensically and look through it, a lot of that was FY21, right, where there was a big increase in the PPE. From other schools I've seen, a lot of it was FY21, and maybe some, really FY20, FY21, where there was huge purchase of technology for hybrid and cleaning and supplies. So, but we can definitely look at that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So moving on, again, this is part of the packet, the 2022-23 revenue report. This is part of the packet, but not super informational at this point in the year because we haven't started receiving a significant amount of our revenue. But I did want to provide it as a historical document so that we can have it as continuously as part of the packet. But there's not much to say about that, the revenue at this point in the year. And I think that's all. Apologies for the filibuster, but we can move on.
May I add something? Thank you. Yep. Adding one financial note. You didn't know I was going to say this. I came to you a few meetings ago with a request for approval to dispose of some dishwashers. And at that time, the estimate for replacement of the 2 dishwashers was in the $30-something thousand range. I want to share that with Jordan's guidance and encouragement to seek additional quotes, I think we are going to realize a savings of approximately $20,000 on the purchase price. Keep doing that.
Awesome, yeah.
That's great.
Went from 30 to 10?
$20,000. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jordan. All right, so on to business. Our introduction of our interim principals.
Well, the part of the evening everyone has been waiting for. Come on up. Let's get a third chair and bring you up here.
It's like a 3-legged stool, right?
I know. Aren't we lucky? So it gives me, I am so proud of this group. I truly am so proud of this group. So folks at home, school committee members here, I have never in my career seen this. I have never seen a principal cohort in a district that is all interim. And I couldn't be happier at this moment. I am sad at the departure of our colleagues. who were in these roles previously. Let me be clear. The two can coexist, right? Our fondness for our colleagues who have moved on, and our appreciation for their contributions, and our happiness at these wonderful new people. So now we figured out who is the most senior here. Okay, Jim Trill signed.
So I may look old.
Yeah,
You signed first. Oh, you're talking about the actual...
James Trill is the longest-serving interim principal in the district.
By how long? About 30
Few weeks.
30 minutes.
About an hour and 10 minutes.
Might not have been that long. Might have been half an hour.
That was actually, they signed me on British time, which is 5 hours ahead.
Okay. Oh, there you go. So you're fapping. Okay. All right.
It all counts in seniority.
Yeah, that's what.
I'm going to introduce each by name and position, and then maybe we'll invite them to say a little bit of a hello. And we had time with each other during admin retreat. James Trill is our new interim principal at Northfield Elementary School. John Carter is our interim principal here at Pioneer Valley Regional School. And my goodness, look at us, lickety-split. Mrs. Cynthia Schultz is our brand new, ink is barely dry, interim principal at Bernardston Elementary School. Welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
We're so happy. Jim, could we start with you? And if you would move that microphone very close to you.
Thank
Just give us a little hello and background.
45 minutes is enough?
Yeah.
Lovely. Good evening. As Patricia said, Jim Trill, 30 years living in this community. And it's a pleasure to be back working at Pioneer. The 30 years, our 4 children, 3 of them went to Northfield Elementary School, and all 4 of them graduated from Pioneer. And I had the honor of working at Pioneer from 2003 through 2007. And I've got to say it was a difficult time to leave, but I want to say thank you to Pioneer because they prepared me to move into the next step, which was administration. And I actually got a call from a colleague here to say, we want you to move into this next stage. And, well, here I am, I'm back from retirement, you know, to be in administration here. And it's an honor. It's fabulous to be back and excited to be looking and working with new colleagues and hopefully friends and family, and it's going to be a great year. So thank you for inviting me and having the sort of confidence to be able to say, we'll take this young man back from retirement and let's see what he can do. So it's going to be good. Thanks.
All right, so I'm John Carter, and I'm just going in as interim principal here at Pioneer, and I don't have the experience that Jim does in the administration part, but I've been in education for 20-something years, and I'm really looking forward to this next step in helping teachers to just grow and give everything they can to their fellow teachers and students. And I'm also very lucky to have a great group here that I can bounce ideas off of, and Jim's keeping me on the straight and narrow here, so thank you.
Hello, my name's Cynthia Schultz, and today is my first day here, and I'm very excited to be here. I want to say how welcoming the community has been, and I mean that very sincerely. I even enjoyed interviewing here. I must say, I found the people so warm and genuine, and I really feel fortunate to be here. I've been a teacher for many years. I've worked in 2 different communities. I've had the opportunity to do some leadership teaching and work in the schools, and I'm super excited to be here as the interim principal at Bernardston. Thank you.
Thank you. School committee, any questions for our team here? Any? David?
How long did your retirement last?
Sorry.
You've been talking to my wife, yeah. That's actually a great question. 3 years. And it's 3 years to go from 100 miles an hour down to 10, and 3 weeks to go from 10 up to 100. But 3 years gave me the opportunity to decompress and to reflect and to really take a clear look at what is it that I'm going to do, because 3 years ago I said, why am I retiring? And my wife retired with me. And we're pretty young, so we're young at heart, obviously. But, I value what you say about how long was it, that gap. But it's given me that sort of reflective time to think about what this next step will be and how can I help the community. And Patricia called. It's difficult to say no to Pioneer because that's buried here. I owe it so much. My family does. It's where we've grown up, and we're not going to let the district disappear. And I mean everyone in the district, all of the communities that make up our district. So that's the reason why people thought I was crazy, because we were having such a fabulous retirement. But we're going to have a really good time, and I truly mean that. So. Please don't ask the follow-up, which is how long is being out of retirement going to last? Because this is going live and my wife might be watching.
I think one of the things that you're going to bring, which is so important, is, and particularly as you work with your colleagues, that you have a perspective now that provides balance between your personal life and your family and your work. And that is so critically important to be able to do and perform at a high level, proficient level in an organization. So sharing that and helping to helping your colleagues keep their eye on the ball and on the prize in a balanced way, you're going to make a wonderful team, and we're very fortunate to have the three of you.
Thank you.
I just have to say the last person that was out of retirement for interim has signed up full time, so.
Yeah, there is that. Sorry, Wendy.
Can I add one more thing, as it's on record? I just want to congratulate and thank Megan Desmarais, because I wouldn't be here without, obviously, her support and her help. And she's done a fantastic job over that period of time. And Northfield, very blessed indeed. Great staff, and I know the same. I saw that in action today at Bernardston. And, of course, I know Pioneer as a school. So there are great people at each school. But Megan's done a fabulous job, so thank you.
Very nice.
The school committee, I think you can see we've got, there's a nice vibe. There's so much experience, varied experience, and I have very high hopes for our team. So thank you for coming out. I'm sorry you had to wait so long to come up and say hello. Please don't stay for the rest of the meeting. Go home. We have a long day tomorrow. Thank you very much, and congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
We're excited to see what will be coming this year. Whew. All right, take a deep breath. Back now to the school improvement plans.
These points are going to be quicker than anticipated because I was aspirational in putting these on the agenda, and a lot happening in the past 2 weeks. So I'm just going to give the briefest of outlooks on the school improvement plans. Here's my thinking. We've got 3 interims in place. I am recommending to the principals, and we'll bring the plans to you, that the elementary schools have identical school improvement plans that are one-year plans for this year, and that they have 2 goals. One of them relate to the introduction of the new behaviorist position, and that we really make that work. We make the support for our kids through the behaviorist, under the supervision of the BCBA, with the teams in each building. That be one of the goals. And the other relate to academics and the ELA rollout of the new curriculum, and we leave it there. So that's what I'm going to bring to you, identical plans for both schools.
Good.
I want to talk with John. I'm not sure what makes sense for a one-year plan for Pioneer. I want to give John space to talk with his faculty, but that's what I'm thinking about plans. And okay. The elementary handbook. I really wanted to bring you the new handbook. Here's the story with that.
Can I stop you for a
Yeah.
second? ELA.
English language arts. I'm so sorry. The
English language learners.
no ELA.
Oh,
English language arts.
Oh.
That new curriculum, David, the collaborative classroom curriculum that's been rolled out. Something related to that.
I appreciate there being an academic component.
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. I heard you. I heard you. We'll
Thank
do
you.
that. And what other questions about the goals?
ESL is the one I would have confused it with.
Yeah. I need to, thank you, David. I need not to just, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good school committee. We are going to do, you are going to do, we are going to do great stuff this year. Okay, the elementary handbook. Here's the story here. State law and district policy require that the school committee approve the student handbook for any building that has grades 9 through 12 inclusive. There is not a law that says the school committee has to approve elementary handbooks. That was interesting to me. I didn't know that until we started looking at things. Last year, we had separate elementary handbooks that had substantially similar language but different structures, and they're not really user-friendly. My team spent several hours in late spring, early summer, beginning to tear things apart. One of the pieces of work that I handed to Megan Damaris this summer was, please work on this. And Megan did a bang-up job. She just collapsed things, clarified things. Our goal is to have a single elementary handbook that has little bits that are different for the building. So when we're talking about where you drop your kid off in the morning, that would be different, but otherwise it's one handbook, and have it be much more user-friendly. The handbook is primarily online at this point. So we looked at elementary handbooks from about a half a dozen districts. Cambridge has a really nice one. I wanted to bring it to you tonight, but it's not ready. So what we will bring you is a single handbook that is shorter, and it's now going to have snippets of information about a topic with a link to source documents if you want to learn more. So if a parent or guardian can walk through the document much more quickly, find what they want, have it be more visually attractive. I think there may be only two important changes that I would want the committee's approval for. The first is, surprisingly, the elementary handbooks do not allow admin in the buildings to take a child's cell phone during the day if the child might be misusing the cell phone, and put it in the office for safekeeping until the end of the day. We need to add that. It's in the high school handbook. The second is also in the high school handbook, consistent with state law. We can, if we let families know in advance, release basic, what is called student directory information to third parties. If we say in advance this, we might do this. So that would include a student's name, address, grade. At the high school level, it can often include their height and weight, if they are on an athletic team and what clubs. We don't want to do that at the elementary level. Here's why I'm going to, I think, bring this to you for approval in a future meeting. In our coordination with Warwick for the transition, we want to make sure that we can give the Warwick public school to become access to contact families. And so if in the handbook we say we could release that information to a third party, like the Warwick schools, it's all set. And we can just do that. So again, apologies, I really wanted to bring you the new handbook, but that's going to have to wait until the next meeting. Yeah. That's the high, sorry, I shouldn't just say high school. The Pioneer handbook is a single handbook, yeah.
Point of fact, we don't have a middle school. We have a junior high school. Check
That's
it out.
correct.
It's in the district agreement.
Yeah, thank you. I went to middle school, so I was going to middle school.
Melissa, you have a question?
Thanks. Has the policy subcommittee reviewed this? Or would a curriculum, would that be the first step before it comes to the full committee? Or
That's
is
a
this?
good question. The policy around handbooks does not mention a subcommittee.
I think that can come to the full
I think that
committee.
can come straight to the committee.
I do too.
That would be my sense. Actually, the policy, so what's that?
I would consider this the first read.
The policy actually has language that says the superintendent will determine if they think the school committee needs to do a review. It's a very interesting sentence. But I'll go back, Melissa, and reread it and check that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Lastly, this is another one we wanted to bring it to you, but given the need to do the BES hire and our medical team has not been available over the past week. Okay, COVID info. As I was getting ready for tonight, I was thinking, okay, the state released their COVID guidance last week. No, they didn't. It was on Monday. That's how fast things are moving. We had a call with the commissioner on Monday. The CDC released their updated guidance on the 11th. The big picture is there's very little change from the way things were in the spring in terms of what the state is recommending. They are not implementing a mask mandate at this time. They are not continuing with test and stay. They are not recommending widespread surveillance testing of asymptomatic individuals. They are still requiring that anyone entering school health offices be masked. The COVID policy that the school committee approved last year relating to vaccines and the requirement that staff either produce documentation of vaccination or participate in weekly testing, that policy expired at the end of the year, the way it was written. So our medical team will, in the next 2 weeks, be pulling together the information from the DESE guidance, the CDC guidance, and develop something to bring to you and that we can share with our communities. But for right now, families should think there's no mask mandate from the state. For our staff, there's no current vaccine mandate. And until the medical team brings something forward and the school committee considers it, I won't be requiring people to test.
There's no contact tracing anymore.
There is no contact tracing. The state is not making PPE available. They are saying that we should have sufficient supplies on hand. We do have access to contract pricing for PPE should there be a surge. And the state, I think, will consider additional funding if there's a really big surge. Again, I had wanted to bring you a document, but not possible, and we'll do that at the next meeting.
At-home tests?
I do not believe that the state is continuing with further distribution of test kits to districts to hand out. We can, through contract pricing, get more tests.
Yeah, that's helpful because you can determine whether it's just a cold or.
I believe we have a significant supply on hand, but I'll check and bring that information back.
All right. Any other business not anticipated at the time of posting?
Not for me.
Okay. Subcommittee reports?
No.
So buildings and grounds, anything to report? Curriculum and personnel, anything new? Oh, you're muted, Karen.
We met on August, I'm looking at my calendar, 3rd briefly, and we okayed a couple of new positions. I do not have any of my materials with me on vacation, so if you need to know what those job descriptions are, perhaps Patricia could help with that.
Bring those to school committee. Karen, are those the ones that the subcommittee reviewed and we subsequently brought to the full committee? The technology administrator and the behaviorist, the CODA?
I'm not sure.
I think we reviewed those.
I think we met in July, actually, July 28th.
July 20th.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was after our last last full school committee meeting. I know we met after that. So,
Oh, right.
I don't know where I am. Okay? I'll update you next time if I need to.
Okay. Budget subcommittee?
I have a question
Yeah.
for the personnel part of the curriculum. I was asked if the personnel subcommittee has been involved with all the new hires, and the personnel subcommittee is supposed to do exit interviews, or there is a policy on exit interviews? Or
Okay, there is a policy on exit interviews. I'm not aware that it goes to the personnel and curriculum subcommittee. We have decided to drop that in our talk with Tracy because we've been advised by council that that is a fraught type of procedure to have. So many personnel issues can come up in a public meeting that should not. So.
as a matter of fact, I didn't even know there was an active personnel committee. I said,
No.
oh, we have one? So,
Curriculum personnel,
yeah.
yeah.
So what
Yeah.
do you do as far as personnel?
We haven't ever done any
Okay.
exit interviews because of guidance from whoever the current superintendent was, and because council had warned us that we could get into legal issues that way, privacy issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Perhaps we could rename that and talk about that later, and because it is misleading. And we did have a conversation about the dangerous waters you can get into when you start talking about personnel. And so certainly, curriculum instruction, if they're, involved in information. But I think the day has gone by in terms of the curriculum, unless we're creating a position, but you would bring that forward. So we can talk about that maybe at another time.
Now, Alan, it is one of the committees that is recommended by MASC, and certainly I think it's an appropriate thing to look at job descriptions. We are woefully inadequate in our supply of current or any job descriptions for most positions.
Well, it might be helpful from MASC to get their scope of work that the curriculum and personnel subcommittee does. They must have a list of activities that they would be involved in, so that we have knowledge of what their
Yes.
area would be covering.
Those are embedded in our policies. And many of those have emanated from MASC.
Thank you.
Even if we don't do exit interviews per se, I think there's still value in, given the amount of turnover we've had, this summer in the past couple of years, to look at that, and see, what are the factors driving that? Is it people just getting new jobs?
I was going to bring that up when we come out of executive session and get to the personnel report. I'm happy to share that now. to respond to the feedback, Karen, that you had given regarding an interest in understanding why personnel changes happen. We've added a column to our personnel changes document that you have in front of you. We do not share that publicly because that column includes our best guess, or if we have clear information about why folks leave the district. And it wouldn't be appropriate for us to share that in all cases, but we are now keeping a close eye on it, and I will come to you with any trends that develop. And honestly, right now, I'm not seeing a concerning trend.
Okay.
Budget Subcommittee, anything to report?
Like I mentioned earlier, we met last week and pretty much went over everything Jordan presented this evening. And we did discuss when we will start working on the budget. And it looks like October we will start this year.
Policy Subcommittee?
Okay, we met in early August, and we talked with Tracy Novick from MASC to go over the part of Section I of our policy manual that we somehow overlooked during the whole process. So we did that, as well as talked about what the next steps are. Hopefully, we'll get the full thing to you by our second September meeting.
Great, thank you. District agreement?
We have not met all summer, but there is a plan to meet. Did we say mid-September?
In September.
In September, yeah. Some of the challenges about the district agreement have had to do with trying to really work on the Warwick transition. And I'm going to go right into that if you don't mind, Raina.
Right ahead.
We have, I don't even know how many 3-hour sessions we have had. We have met either on a Friday or a Saturday. Oh, we met one evening because people couldn't do Friday or Saturday in the summer. But as Jessica Marshall had mentioned at I don't know if it was our last meeting, but this has been a very collaborative approach with folks from Warwick, and we have come pretty far. The transition agreement will be going to different attorneys because our attorney cannot work on this. It's a conflict for him. And we've come to an agreement on the tuition agreement too. So we've come pretty far. And I think we're hoping that September, the attorneys will be done with this. I'm looking at David.
We're planning on that first September meeting. I'm not 100% sure that the contract part that describes how we meet the post-employment benefit, but there's progress being made. I got bills from the Sullivan attorneys to pay. So essentially a first read of the transition agreement and the tuition agreement are planned for the first meeting in September.
And we hope to have it done by October.
Right.
All right.
Act on it at the next meeting. Because then the following meeting is the subject is the district's policies. The second September meeting, that's my understanding. And then the October meeting would be to act on the contract and the two agreements.
And I would just like to say, from my standpoint, if in the future we have something large to work on, these 3-hour meetings really get a lot done. Rather than 1-hour meetings every so often, I'd rather have a 3-hour meeting and Patricia's very good at goal setting for us for the meeting. We try to keep on track, and we set up a timeline, and it really makes us work and get the job done.
It's a fundamentally different task. It's a working group session. It's not like a school committee meeting. I would never wish for a 3-hour school committee.
No, no, no. That's not what I meant.
Question for David. Did you get any correspondence from the attorney regarding trying to eliminate the conflict? Or no, select board meeting, you were going to reach out?
I did reach out. He was on vacation. I talked with Adam. So Dupre Law Firm is Warwick's labor counsel. So based on that conflict, Russell said he can't be involved in this. Warwick Select Board did vote Russell an ethics exemption to act on behalf of Pioneer. But what it could mean, though, is that down the road, if Warwick and Pioneer ever got at loggerheads, Warwick would have essentially given up Dupre being labor counsel. So I don't know if Russell wants to avail himself of that option. Now you know, and you've got. I got a right to call him as labor counsel for Warwick, but for the amount of money we pay him, I don't like to use a lot of his time. But that is a voted ethics exemption.
So it wasn't, Warwick sought the Ethics Commission's?
No, not the Ethics Commission. It's just as a client of Russell's, Warwick as his client, the Board of Selectmen voted to issue him the okay to possibly work against Warwick's interests.
Okay, thank you. Was this recent?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So last week, I didn't follow up this week, but last week I called. Russell was on vacation, and I
Yes,
followed
he's
up
on
with
vacation.
Adam, and Adam said you should talk to Russell, but I don't think this is going to work. We talked about it a while.
I'll check in with him. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, that was just an effort to try to expedite this and have you be able to keep your attorney.
Yeah.
We were going to.
Thank you.
Out of that.
Great. Moving on, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, our Director of Student Services, and we will be returning to open session.
Second.
All right, I guess we'll vote.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
Nathan Swartz, yes.
What's your name?
Alan Genovese Warwick, yes.
Oh, yes.
To you or her? I go to you or her? Okay.
David?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes. David votes yes.
Melissa? And Karen?
Karen, yes.
Let's see, Melissa Ann, yes? We would like you to come into executive session with us to take minutes.
Okay, yeah, thank you. The motion didn't state who would be in the meeting, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. And Melissa, did you vote?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just put on my AirPods
Oh.
for prep. Yes, I voted, and yes, I said yes.
Okay, thank you. And Raina Dasty, yes.
But who is coming into the meeting outside of the committee?
Oh, we're inviting Jordan
Jordan,
and
myself,
the superintendent
Ann.
and Ann, yes, and you, Ann.
Okay. So that's.
Are we going into our room?
Boom.
Selection of us.
So I would like to entertain a motion to,
So I move that we authorize the chair to sign the Director of Student Service contract with Christy Fontaine.
as
my motion.
presented.
I'll second. Michelle?
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Ellen?
Is it going to, in your motion, is it going to, made on this, and it's today's date, the 18th day of August, so it's just captures correctly, it says the 12th, and then you just sign another one and give it to her, nothing's changed except,
Yeah,
Just change the
okay,
date.
that's fine.
then I vote yes.
Michelle Jeruso, yes.
David Young, yes.
Karen
Karen O'Neill, yes.
and Rita Dastu, yes. All right.
That'll be good.
Thank you.
So have we already discussed personnel?
Yes, you have in front of you the personnel changes document that you requested. Let's see. So we are trying to track each month for you in red changes that have taken place since the last school committee meeting. And since this document was printed, I think Joanne might have printed yesterday, I believe there have been additional changes. NES, yes, there have been changes because NES has filled all of its positions. I am pleased to report that in the past week, we have hired several exceptional and experienced educators with, between 10 and 20 years of experience into the district. Folks, I think, are hearing about the upswing that we're on and are coming to Pioneer. They're leaving their longtime roles elsewhere, which is terrific. This is also a reflection of the flexibility that the contract allows. I am able to honor all years of experience in other districts when teachers come to us. So there are some districts in which there's a limit on the number of years that a superintendent may credit a new employee with. So if someone comes with 20 years of experience, well, they won't come with 20 years of experience because the superintendent is limited to giving them 3 years on the salary grid. That's not the case with us. So we are getting veteran educators. There's a mix. There are some newer folks. I am delighted. And there are some new hires who went through Pioneer. And there are some new hires who have kids in the district. So I am feeling pleased. And again, we've instituted a new practice in the district. We started last year. I interview every potential new hire at faculty level and above because I want a consistent set of eyes on people who will get a PVREA contract. And the hiring managers have been great. So I want school committee to know. I meet with everybody and I make the final call as to whether we make an offer. So there is that.
I think I missed one thing when you were saying, are you saying that in the professional contracts, you are able to place people on the salary schedule where you feel they belong and you're not limited to where the steps? Okay, and that's
Not the lane. The lanes I need
Right, okay.
transcripts.
right, but there's years of service,
Years of service.
right?
So I scrutinize hiring documents carefully. My hiring managers do,
Right.
and they make a recommendation. But I then re-scrutinize everything. I
So if
review
someone
every
has
transcript.
15 years of experience, you might put them on 18?
We don't have a step 18, but I could credit them with 15 years of experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was,
Yep.
that's very good to have in a contract, to give you that discretion. You don't see that in a lot of contracts.
It's terrific for us, yeah.
Karen, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Anything recent on the math positions at Pioneer?
Okay, I remember this. Yes on math, is that correct? Yeah. I'm interviewing the person tomorrow. So there is a recommendation, and I will interview the person tomorrow and make the final call. Did you hear that, Karen?
I heard that. I guess she's looking over there at the screen, yes. And what about the tech positions?
I'm looking at Jordan. We have a potential candidate.
For engineering and tech?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And thank you for honoring years of experience. I came to Pioneer with over 20 years, and I only got credit for 9.
Yeah, it's a great recruiting tool. I want to acknowledge a departure. We heard from curriculum coordinator, grants manager Ariel Leroux this week that she has decided to take a position elsewhere, closer to home. She is going to be a teacher of writing, which I know is near and dear to her heart. So we thank Ariel Leroux specifically for her many, many years of service as an educator, as a union leader, and as an administrator at Pioneer. And we wish her the best of luck and much happiness in her new position. I am going to press the pause button on hiring someone else for that position. I want to give my team time to consider options for what that position might look like.
Like a job description.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Nathan?
Yeah, just staffing the before and after school.
Oh, hey, gosh. You know, I was locked out of my office before the meeting, and I had my notes for tonight. And yes, I'm sending out a district update. The before and after school programs are opening. They are going to happen. Chris Taggart at CES has hired sufficient staff. We have a call tomorrow morning. We're going to be talking about next steps. I'll get information from him about possible program hours. We're going to go over program pricing, and I have talked with you before. I believe I'm going to consider using some ESSER money to provide a partial subsidy for families that qualify for free and reduced meals for their kids for these programs. That's a great use of ESSER funding. Thank you, Nathan. Oh, last thing, sorry, on hiring. Don't know if folks were aware, we have a recent out-of-state hire, and I put out a call on Nextdoor in Northfield to say, hey, has anybody got a lead on temporary housing? We've got a great new teacher. And within 2 days, our new teacher had hired had rented a wonderful place in Northfield. I'm going to be putting out another call. We have someone else who is going to need some housing in the area, so I'll put that. Leiden, Leiden has a newsletter, an online newsletter. What is it?
Yes, the newsletter, the deadline, I believe, is
Nope.
Monday. Isn't it Monday, the deadline?
It's the 20th.
Okay, I'm going to put something out there. I'll put something out on Nextdoor in Northfield. I'll see what's in Bernardston and Warwick. You have something? I'll send something your way. Thank you.
Karen, you still have your hand raised.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I didn't know if you heard me.
David?
The deadline is the 20th of the month for the Leiden.
Yep, thank you. David?
I want to publicly report on my confusion. I was wrong on self-insurance on workers' comp. We self-insure unemployment. We probably don't self-insure workers' comp.
Right.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add a little comment as a parent who could not have managed without aftercare. We've outgrown that at this point in our lives, but I think that's great news for the families in our community.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really proud of our team. I feel like we're making the kind of progress the district has wanted. So thank you, everybody, for. We're making progress.
Great. Wonderful. All right. Any other updates? Miscellaneous items?
Where are you? Excuse me.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, where are you on discussion of our meetings for next month? I overheard something.
So we were discussing the fact that Thursday, September 8th, which is when our next meeting is scheduled, is actually the same night as the parade for the Franklin County Fair. And so the question is, do we want to meet on the 15th and the 22nd instead of the 8th and 15th?
I would just like to say I'd have trouble presenting the policy manual for, on the 22nd, because we're getting very close to my daughter's wedding.
Could we shift another day in that week? So
There's
Thursday to
the 7th instead of the 8th. Would Wednesday work for people?
Yeah?
For when?
We have mediation.
Oh,
Oh.
do we? Sorry, the 7th would not work for,
I don't do Wednesday.
for that.
Could I make a,
Yes.
could we meet at 7:30 instead of 7?
Yeah.
Okay, that seems,
On when?
time to get
We
back?
have a long, it's going to be a
We'll
long
see.
meeting.
There's,
Okay, 7:30.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, whatever.
yeah. Or we could just keep it. I know, we know there's at least one member who won't, who would have a hard time getting here for 7.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Or be.
I just want to clarify.
Go ahead, Ann.
The first meeting on September 15th, and the second meeting on September 22nd with a possible start time of 7:30?
No.
No, we're debating about the 8th, starting a little later on the 8th. And not meeting on the 22nd.
Okay.
So I think we'll,
Oh, my gosh. Okay, may I?
Yes.
Jordan has reminded me as we talk meetings, I believe the school committee needs to approve school meal prices before the opening of school, and that did not get onto this agenda. I don't know if this would require a very fast online special meeting early next week.
I suggest we take it up on the anticipation.
yeah, other business, not.
Change the pricing. We can get
Today?
Yeah, there's
Are you changing?
other
you
business
prepared?
not.
You have-
Yeah.
how much. I'm okay to change it.
Okay, Jordan Burns, go ahead.
Yeah.
Eat the microphone.
Okay, so regarding the FY23 prices, I probably should preface this a little bit, because I know we're going to have state subsidized free meals. However, the federal program is not working under the assumption that Massachusetts has free meals, so we do have to set prices despite the fact that for many of the meals, they will in fact be free to students. But nonetheless, we need to set those prices even though students would only be paying for second lunches, for example, and the adult lunches. So let's get off and running. The elementary breakfast price would be $2.75. High school breakfast, also $2.75. Adult breakfast, $3.50. And now I'll get into the areas where we had previous pricing, and I'll provide those as well. As we were charging for second lunches, so we had a price for that, because I know comparison's important. So the elementary lunch and second lunch price will be $3.50. That price for FY22 was $3.25. The high school lunch and second lunch price is $3.75, and that price was $3.25 in fiscal year 22. The adult lunch would go from $4.60 in FY22 to $5 in FY23, and the individual milk price, sometimes students want to get a lunch but then purchase an additional milk, that's 65 cents.
It's always a nickel.
I know.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
Nathan Schwartz, Warwick, yes.
Alan Genovese, Warwick, yes.
Michelle Drews, Leiden, yes.
David Young, yes.
Karen? And Rita
Karen
Dasty.
O'Neill, yes.
And Rita Dasty, yes. So that motion passes. Way to get some business done.
So I just had one just informational thing. So the Six-Town Regional Planning Board is planning on having a series of communications with the staff and with the parents, with the school committee and so forth. So we'll be putting together a schedule and activities. So hopefully in the next, within the next month and a half, we'll be bringing information to the school committee and to both school committees and give you an update. So just want to make sure you're in the loop of the work we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next meeting, so we'll plan on Thursday, September 8th at 7 PM,
Regular time.
a regular time.
Okay.
Not 7:30?
No, I think we'll
Oh, okay.
keep it at 7. We have a long agenda, I think.
All right, you want a motion to adjourn?
Before we do,
Yep.
just a quick couple thing. I'd like to thank our chairperson for stepping up and doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Speaking.
Lots of room for improvement, but
You're doing
appreciate-
great. You're doing fine.
It's going to be a good year.
Could you just repeat that? I could not hear who was speaking and what they said.
I'm sorry, Ann, that was me, Nathan. I just wanted to share appreciation for the chair, our new chairperson, for stepping up and doing such a good job with the duties.
I totally agree.
Yes. Thank you. All right, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
Nathan Schwartz, Warwick, yes.
Alan Genovese, Warwick, yes.
Michelle Drews, Leiden, yes.
David?
David Young, yes.
Karen?
And Karen O'Neill, Leiden, yes.
And Raina Dasto, yes. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you very much.